The ocean rested beneath a gentle morning haze, its vast surface moving in slow, rhythmic breaths. Far from the shore, where the water shimmered like polished glass, a tiny fragment of warmth drifted downward from the rising sun. It touched the surface softly, awakening a single droplet that had long been part of the quiet sea. Within that delicate touch of warmth, the droplet felt something new, an invitation to rise. Slowly, almost shyly, the droplet loosened itself from the embrace of the ocean. The air around it shimmered faintly as it began to lift, carried upward by a warm, peaceful current. The world grew lighter as the droplet ascended. Beneath it, the ocean stretched endlessly, a calm blue memory fading into distance. Above it, the sky opened like a tranquil path waiting to be explored. The droplet felt no fear. Its journey was gentle, like being carried on the hands of a soft breeze. It drifted higher and higher, sensing the delicate balance between warmth and coolness as the air shifted around it. The sunlight wrapped it in a soft golden glow, giving it strength without hurry. Everything in its rise felt patient, as if time itself had slowed to watch. As it climbed, the droplet encountered others, tiny shimmering companions rising from the sea with the same quiet purpose. They floated nearby, not speaking, yet sharing an unspoken understanding. Each one had been part of the same ocean. Each carried the same memories of waves and tides. And now, each rose toward the same peaceful unknown. Together, they moved as a soft gathering of glimmers, rising in harmony. The wind guided them with gentle hands, steady and calm. Sometimes the droplet swayed to the left, sometimes to the right, never rushed, never disturbed. It listened to the faint whispers of the breeze, soft, comforting murmurs that spoke of sky paths and cloudlands hidden beyond sight. The higher the droplet rose, the more the world below softened, colors blending into a serene blur of blues and greens. A soft coolness touched the droplet as it reached a higher layer of the atmosphere. The warm current that had lifted it began to mingle with a cooler, slower breath of air. The droplet trembled gently, not from fear, but from the delicate transformation happening within it. It felt itself drawing closer to other droplets, gathering not by force, but by a natural pull, as if destiny arranged their meeting. Around the droplet, the air thickened with a faint mist. Shapes began to form, soft, pale fragments of vapor that drifted and curled like slow-moving brushstrokes across the sky. The droplet found itself settling into this growing formation, becoming part of something larger and more peaceful than it had ever known. Within this new cradle of air and light, it felt safe, welcomed, and embraced. Below, the ocean glimmered like a distant memory. Above, the sky stretched open, quiet, and limitless. The droplet, now part of a young cloud, rested among its companions. It could still sense the warmth of the sun, the coolness of the air, and the gentle rhythm of the wind carrying them forward. For the first time, the droplet understood something deeper. This was only the beginning. The sky held stories yet to be discovered, and the cloud it now belonged to would drift through them slowly, peacefully, learning the quiet wisdom carried by every breeze. And so, the journey of the droplet began not with noise, but with a whisper of warmth, a soft ascent, and the silent promise of the wide sky ahead. The young cloud drifted gently across the open sky, carrying within it the small droplet, who had only just begun to understand the vastness above. The air around the cloud grew cooler, yet softer, wrapping it in a calm that seemed to deepen with every slow movement upward. Far below, the ocean was no longer visible, only faint colours blending into a distant haze, as if the world it once knew had folded quietly behind it. The cloud felt a gentle pull from above, an unseen invitation urging it higher. It did not rush. Instead, it rose the way a feather rises in a silent room, carried by currents too delicate to be seen. The droplet nestled peacefully within the misty body of the cloud, sensing each shift as a soft, rhythmic pulse. Every subtle change in temperature, every whisper of the breeze, every ray of sunlight weaving through the vapor, all of it felt like part of a quiet conversation between sky and cloud. As the cloud ascended, the sunlight softened, spreading through its vapor like warm, golden threads. These threads danced slowly, illuminating small pockets of mist inside the cloud. The droplet caught glimpses of light, glowing faintly around it, reflections that shimmered like tiny stars born from the morning sky. It began to understand that the higher the cloud floated, the gentler the world became, as though the sky itself grew more patient the farther one moved from the earth. The wind shifted, becoming lighter, cooler, more refined. It shaped the cloud with delicate hands, stretching some parts, gathering others, forming curves and soft edges that moved with serene grace. The droplet could feel the transformation, not a change of identity, but a deepening of presence. It was no longer a simple droplet lifted by chance. It was now part of a living form, carried upward with purpose. As they climbed, the cloud began to see the world from new angles. Below, layers of faint mist hovered like soft steps carved in air. Above, the sky grew wider, its pale blue deepening into something more spacious, more open. The cloud felt itself entering a region untouched by heaviness, a place where only the lightest shapes dared to drift. Some droplets inside the cloud vibrated gently as the air thinned, adjusting to the new height. Others settled quietly, their movement barely noticeable. The collective rhythm of the cloud became slower, more tranquil, as if rising through the sky was a kind of meditation. The droplet listened to the silence that grew around them, an expansive quiet that wasn't empty, but full of peaceful possibilities. Occasionally, a faint breeze brushed past, carrying cool whispers from distant heights. These whispers spoke of places even higher, where clouds grew larger and softer, and where the world below seemed like a distant dream. The young cloud absorbed these murmurs with curiosity, letting them guide its slow ascent. The droplet felt each whisper resonate gently inside it, urging it to trust the journey. Higher still, the air grew thinner, but the calm deepened. The cloud felt lighter than before, almost weightless, as if it were drifting through a soft, invisible sea. The sun's warmth remained close, touching only the edges of the cloud and leaving its interior wrapped in cool serenity. The droplet rested within that serene heart, feeling both supported and free, suspended in a delicate balance of warmth and stillness. With every moment, the cloud understood that rising wasn't about reaching a destination. It was about experiencing the sky layer by layer, discovering the gentle transitions that shaped its existence. And the droplet, quiet and observant, realized that even the simplest upward movement held meaning, an unfolding of life in the softest, most peaceful way. By the time the cloud settled into its new height, it sensed that something within it had changed. Not dramatically, not suddenly, but subtly and beautifully. It was becoming part of the sky, part of the tranquil dance that only clouds knew. And the droplet, now cradled within this new expanse, felt its journey deepen, its understanding grow, and its bond with the cloud strengthen. The ascent had begun, and it was far from over. The young cloud drifted softly across the high sky, feeling its shape settle into a gentle balance. Within its cool mist, the droplet rested peacefully, sensing that something new was approaching. The air around them shifted, carrying faint vibrations, subtle hints that other clouds were near. They were not loud or imposing. Their presence felt like quiet footsteps entering a serene room, calm and unhurried. As the cloud continued its slow journey, faint silhouettes began to form in the distance. At first, they appeared as pale smudges against the blue, barely noticeable. But as the minutes passed, those shapes grew clearer. There were other clouds, some small and delicate, others fuller and older, each one drifting with the same soft rhythm that filled the sky. The young cloud felt a gentle tug in their direction, not a forceful pull, but an invitation. It moved closer, carried by winds that seemed to understand the quiet importance of the moment. The droplet sensed anticipation within the cloud's vapor, a subtle excitement wrapped in calmness. It wondered what it meant to meet others like themselves, to join a larger family of shapes floating in the serene expanse. When the cloud finally approached the gathering, it noticed how the other clouds welcomed it without words. They did not rush, did not crowd, did not overwhelm. They simply drifted closer, allowing their soft edges to mingle. Their forms brushed against one another like gentle greetings. Wisps of vapor intertwined, creating delicate bridges between them. The sky around them felt warmer, brighter, as if the light itself was pleased with their union. Inside the young cloud, the droplet felt the change immediately. Movements that had once been slow and solitary became part of a larger rhythm. Small breezes rippled through the connected clouds, carrying faint murmurs that traveled from one shape to another. These murmurs were not messages, yet they carried meaning. Stories of distant skies, gentle rains, and long journeys across the world. Some clouds were older, their bodies thicker and more settled. Their presence radiated a kind of wisdom. They drifted with a patience that spoke of countless cycles of rising and falling, of forming and dissolving, of giving rain to forests, mountains, and seas. Others were young, light, playful in their movements, drifting with curiosity toward every shift of wind. The young cloud found comfort among them. It felt itself expanding slightly, its vapor stretching and relaxing, adapting to the soft contact with its companions. The droplet floated deeper inside, feeling safer than ever. It listened to the harmonized breaths of the gathered clouds. Each one exhaled cool mist, inhaled warm sunlight, and together they created a peaceful chorus that filled the sky. Occasionally, a breeze would pass through the group, weaving between their shapes and carrying tiny specks of moisture from one cloud to another. The droplet felt these currents touch it lightly, connecting it to droplets it had never met. Though each droplet had its own story, its own journey, they all shared a silent bond born from the same world below. The clouds began to move together, drifting in a unified direction. Their combined presence cast a soft shadow over the land beneath, a gentle, wandering shade that cooled the earth without dimming its colors. The young cloud felt a sense of belonging now, a feeling it had never known while rising alone from the sea. It realized that clouds were never meant to travel in isolation. The sky was vast, yes, but it was also a place of companionship, where shapes found one another and moved as one. As the day progressed, the gathered clouds shifted and reformed, never staying the same for long. Yet no matter how they changed, their unity remained. The droplet sensed that within this peaceful assembly, it would learn more about the sky, about itself, and about the quiet purpose that awaited in the chapters of its journey. The gathering was gentle, but it marked a turning point, an expansion of the cloud's world, a widening of perspective, and a soft reminder that even in the vast sky, one is never truly alone. The gathered clouds drifted together in peaceful harmony, their forms glowing softly under the warm sunlight. Within the young cloud, the droplet felt cradled by a sense of belonging it had never known before. Yet, as the clouds moved across the sky, a new presence approached, gentle but full of quiet strength. It was the wind, arriving not as a gust or force, but as a graceful dancer, ready to guide them forward. At first, the wind touched the clouds like a soft hand brushing silk. Its movement was slow, almost cautious, as if it wished to greet each cloud individually. The young cloud felt a delicate ripple travel through its vapor, a ripple that carried both calm and curiosity. The droplet swayed with the motion, shifting ever so slightly, feeling the beginning of something new, an invitation into a dance older than time. The wind grew a little stronger, though never harsh, and began to move around the cluster of clouds. It circled them with long, sweeping arcs, shaping their edges, stretching their forms, and guiding their drift. The clouds responded with gentle obedience, allowing themselves to be sculpted without resistance. They understood the language of the wind, a language spoken not in words, but in rhythm and flow. The young cloud felt itself lifted slightly, then tilted, then carried forward with a smooth, unbroken motion. It was like being part of a slow and graceful waltz. The droplet inside felt the sensation of drifting in a silent current, where everything moved with purpose, yet without hurry. The wind's pressure shifted from one side to the other, shaping the cloud into soft curves that flowed naturally through the sky. Below them, the earth passed by in a gentle blur. Fields of gold, patches of green, winding rivers that sparkled under the sunlight. The cloud watched these sights without descending toward them. The wind held it steady at its height, choosing the perfect path for its dance. The droplet sensed a deeper pattern unfolding, as though the wind had memorized every contour of the land and knew exactly how to move above it. As the dance continued, the wind whispered through the clouds, creating faint vibrations within their misty bodies. These whispers were ancient, as old as the world itself. They carried stories of wandering seasons, of storms that had come and gone, of mountains shaped by time, and seas that breathed in endless cycles. The young cloud absorbed every whisper with quiet awe. The droplet listened too, feeling each story ripple through its small form like soft echoes. With every movement, the wind encouraged the clouds to shift positions, sometimes stretching them apart, sometimes drawing them closer together. The young cloud found itself gliding a little ahead of the group, then falling behind, then drifting sideways in a smooth arc formed by the wind's gentle choreography. It was a dance with no beginning and no ending, only a graceful unfolding that filled the sky with motion. The droplet began to understand why the clouds trusted the wind so completely. The wind did not command, it guided. It did not push with force, it led with patience. And in following its lead, the clouds discovered the joy of movement, the pleasure of drifting through open sky with elegance and calm. As the sun lowered slightly in the sky, the wind's movement softened. Its sweeping arcs slowed, becoming subtler, as though the dance were reaching a quiet conclusion for the day. The clouds settled into a loose formation, their bodies glowing faintly with the late afternoon light. The young cloud felt itself relax, returning to a gentle, steady drift. Inside, the droplet rested again, carried not only by the cloud, but also by the memory of the wind's dance. It understood now that the sky was not a place of stillness, but a realm of flowing motion, a realm where every breeze, every current, every subtle shift played a part in shaping the cloud's journey. The wind faded into the distance, leaving behind calm air and a lingering sense of graceful movement. The clouds resumed their quiet travel, holding within them the echoes of the dance, a reminder that even in silence, the sky is always in motion, always alive, always inviting. And for the young droplet, the dance had awakened something gentle and enduring, a readiness for whatever the sky would offer next. As the clouds drifted peacefully after their gentle dance with the wind, a new presence began to weave itself into their quiet journey. It came not from movement nor from sound, but from the soft glow spreading across the sky. Sunlight, warm and delicate, descending upon them with the grace of a whispered greeting. The young cloud felt the touch of light before it fully saw it, a faint warmth settling across its misty surface like a hand laid tenderly on its form. Within the cloud, the droplet sensed the shift immediately. The coolness that had surrounded it began to shimmer with a subtle glow. Thin threads of golden light filtered through the cloud's vapor, bending and scattering in soft patterns as they made their way inside. These rays moved slowly, almost thoughtfully, as if they understood that the cloud was a place of stillness and wished not to disturb its peace. The first rays of sunlight entered like gentle explorers, illuminating tiny pockets of mist in quiet bursts of brightness. The droplet watched as droplets around it caught the light, glowing like suspended gems. Each droplet shimmered for a brief moment before the light moved on, drifting deeper into the cloud's heart. It was as though the sunlight spoke in glimmers, soft messages carried not by sound, but by warmth and glow. The young cloud embraced the light, expanding ever so slightly as its vapor warmed. The sunlight strengthened, though never harsh, creating smooth gradients of brightness that washed across the cloud's body. The cloud felt lighter, more awake, yet still calm. The droplet sensed a quiet joy spreading through the mist, a gentle feeling that came from being seen, touched, and illuminated by the sun. As the rays deepened their reach, they created patterns inside the cloud, soft waves of brightness that moved like ripples across a tranquil pond. The droplet drifted through these waves, feeling the warmth shift around it in delicate pulses. Some rays were warm and golden, others pale and silvery, each carrying its own whisper of the sun's distant heart. Outside, the cloud's edges glowed softly. It appeared almost translucent in places, like a fine veil woven from threads of light and vapor. Birds flying beneath the cloud glanced upward, momentarily catching the shimmer along its underside. The world below brightened with the same gentle glow, as if the sun's whisper to the cloud was shared with the earth as well. Inside, the droplet felt as though the light was telling a story, one of beginnings and continuations, of cycles that moved not in loud declarations, but in quiet, persistent warmth. The sunlight seemed to say, even in stillness, there is growth. Even in silence, there is transformation. The droplet absorbed these messages without fully understanding them, but sensing their comfort all the same. The cloud continued drifting, and with each moment the sunlight shifted in angle and hue. Soft gold became a warmer amber, then a gentle ivory, creating a slow, graceful dance of colors within the cloud. The droplet floated through this shifting glow, seeing the world within the cloud change subtly around it. Shadows softened, edges blurred, and the mist seemed to breathe in harmony with the light. Occasionally, the sunlight grew slightly brighter, as if offering a clear, warm breath. At other times, it dimmed, allowing the cloud to rest in a peaceful half-light. The droplet felt its own shape respond to these changes, expanding slightly in warmth, settling again in coolness, never rushed, always held in balance. As the sun moved across the sky, the light began to soften once more. The day was maturing, and the brightness that had filled the cloud slowly transitioned into a gentler glow. The rays grew longer, more delicate, falling through the cloud like fading whispers. The cloud embraced this softening, drifting in serene acceptance of the shifting light. By the time the sun dipped lower toward the horizon, the cloud carried within it the memory of every whisper the light had offered. The droplet felt richer in understanding, touched by warmth that had never demanded anything in return. And as the light grew faint, the cloud knew that the sun's gentle messages would return again, different each time, yet always filled with quiet truth. As the sun continued its slow arc across the sky, the cloud drifted gently toward a land it had not yet seen. Beneath it, stretching farther than the eye could follow, lay a wide expanse of fields, golden, green, and softly shifting in the breeze. The cloud sensed the presence of the earth below in a new way, as though the fields themselves were lifting their quiet energy upward to greet it. The droplet nestled inside the cloud felt this shift. A subtle grounding sensation carried through the mist. The fields were vast and varied. Some glowed with tall grasses that swayed like gentle waves, their tips brushing together with the sound of whispered greetings. Others were rich and dark, freshly turned by unseen hands, holding the quiet promise of seeds yet to grow. Farther on were patches of light green, delicate and soft, where young plants reached upward with tender leaves that shimmered in the sunlight. The cloud drifted slowly across this living tapestry, allowing itself time to take in the quiet beauty beneath. From above, the world looked peaceful and unhurried. Each field carried its own rhythm, its own breath, its own story woven into the earth. The droplet watched as sunlight reflected off small streams that cut through the fields, turning their surfaces into ribbons of silver that stretched through the landscape like drawn-out sighs of light. Farm cottages appeared here and there, tiny shapes from the cloud's perspective, each surrounded by small gardens or winding paths. A few smoke trails rose from their chimneys, curling gently into the air, moving upward as if trying to meet the cloud halfway. The cloud welcomed these delicate threads, absorbing them into its mist with the same softness it extended to everything else. The droplet felt the faint warmth of the smoke's journey, its slow and lazy rise blending into the cloud's cool embrace. As the cloud moved further, it passed over a group of grazing animals, cows resting beneath the shade of tall trees, sheep gathered in small clusters across rolling hills. Their calm presence mirrored the cloud's own slow drift. Occasionally, a bird would rise from the fields, wings beating with measured grace, ascending until it brushed the underside of the cloud before gliding back down. The droplet watched these encounters with quiet fascination, sensing the gentle harmony between sky and earth. The wind here was soft, playful, but not demanding. It nudged the cloud lightly to guide its path, pushing it across fields that seemed to stretch endlessly. Sometimes it carried with it faint scents, earthy, fresh, and warm. These scents floated upward like subtle reminders of life below, and the cloud absorbed them with gratitude. The droplet could almost imagine the texture of the fields simply from the air that touched it. The cloud noticed how the colors of the fields changed as the sun shifted overhead. Golden wheat shimmered with brighter tones, green meadows deepened with richer hues, and distant orchards reflected hints of red and orange from hidden fruits. The earth below appeared to breathe in cycles of color, a living canvas painted by nature's patient hand. As the cloud drifted onward, it sensed the peaceful labor happening below. Farmers tending to their land, hands moving steadily with purpose. Though their figures were small from this height, the cloud could feel their movements through the faint vibrations of the air. Each step, each tool lifted, each gentle touch on the soil resonated upward in subtle waves. It was a rhythm older than the cloud itself, yet familiar in a strangely comforting way. The droplet listened to these quiet rhythms. It felt the presence of growth taking place beneath it, slow but certain. The droplet knew that someday, when the time was right, it might return to these fields as rain, nourishing the life it now observed from afar. This thought carried a tender weight, a sense of purpose resting gently on its tiny form. The cloud drifted until the fields below began to change once more. Trees grew denser, their leafy crowns touching in places and forming shaded paths. Streams widened into small rivers, glistening in the soft light. The cloud felt the transition with a quiet appreciation, knowing that every part of the earth held its own quiet magic. As the journey over the fields came to a gentle end, the cloud carried with it the memory of golden expanses, shimmering streams, and the peaceful heartbeat of the land. The droplet rested within, enriched by what it had witnessed, feeling more connected to the world below than ever before. After drifting peacefully above the vast, open fields, the cloud felt a gentle shift in the air, an indication that the landscape below was changing once again. The horizon softened, and small shapes began to form beneath the cloud's slow-moving shadow. Roads appeared first, thin and winding, like delicate threads connecting distant points. Then came clusters of rooftops, chimneys, and streets arranged with careful human intention. The cloud had reached a city. From above, the city did not buzz with noise the way it might to those walking its streets. Instead, it lay beneath the cloud like a quiet mosaic, each piece contributing to a stillness only visible from the sky. The droplet nestled inside sensed a different kind of energy, one made not of wind or water, but of life moving steadily within structured spaces. The cloud cast a soft shadow across the rooftops as it passed overhead. The shadow moved slowly, stretching over buildings of many heights and shapes. Some rooftops were flat and lined with small gardens, where plants reached upward in hopes of more sunlight. Others were sloped, with tiles that gleamed faintly in the afternoon light. The shadow cooled these surfaces gently, offering temporary relief from the sun's warmth. Below, people walked along streets, unaware of the cloud drifting above them. From this height, their movements looked like delicate motions in a slow, intricate dance. Some walked quickly, their steps purposeful. Others moved at a relaxed pace, pausing to look at shop windows or greet one another. The cloud observed the gentle patterns of human life with quiet curiosity, floating in peaceful contrast to the bustling world below. The droplet felt the subtle vibrations rising from the city, distant footsteps, the hum of conversations, the low, steady rhythm of daily routines. These sensations rose upward through the warm air like invisible threads, reaching into the cloud without disturbing its calm. The droplet absorbed these impressions softly, sensing stories unfolding below, even though no words reached it. Children played in small courtyards, their laughter rising in faint, joyful bursts. A dog barked somewhere, its voice soft and muffled from this distance. Bicycles glided along narrow lanes, their wheels turning with gentle, circular rhythms. The cloud found these sounds comforting, even in their faintness, as if the city was whispering its own version of life to the sky. As the cloud drifted further, it passed above a tall clock tower that reached upward like a quiet guardian. Its pointed top cast a long shadow across the city square. The clock's hands moved with steady precision, marking time in a world where moments rushed by unnoticed. The cloud admired this structure, feeling an unspoken connection between its own slow drift and the tower's unwavering patience. Sunlight filtered around the edges of the cloud, casting soft beams onto the streets below. These beams shifted as the cloud moved, creating gentle transitions from bright light to shade and back again. People stepped into the shadow, welcoming the brief coolness, then returned to the warmth as the cloud continued its path. The droplet noticed how even its small presence, part of a larger form, could bring subtle comfort to those beneath. The cloud felt the weight of the city, not heavy, but full of history, memories, and quiet resilience. The buildings told stories through their shapes and colors. Old stone structures stood beside newer ones made of glass and metal, each reflecting a different chapter of the city's life. The cloud drifted above them all with the same gentle acceptance, casting its calm presence across streets that had seen countless sunrises and sunsets. As the cloud approached the edge of the city, the droplet sensed a shift once again. The dense structures gradually gave way to open spaces, parks, rivers, and quiet patches of greenery, where the city breathed more freely. Trees lined the water's edge, their leaves rustling faintly under the cloud's passing shadow. People sat on benches, some reading, others speaking softly, enjoying the gentle transition between urban life and natural calm. The cloud moved beyond the city at last, carrying with it the impressions of streets, voices, and lives briefly touched by its presence. The droplets settled deeper into the mist, enriched by the quiet connection it had felt with the world below. Though the cloud had not spoken to the city, and the city had not spoken to the cloud, a quiet exchange had taken place. One made not of words, but of shadow, light, and gentle observation. After leaving the quiet boundary of the city behind, the cloud drifted once more into open sky. The air grew lighter, the view clearer, and the horizon seemed to expand in every direction. The young cloud felt unburdened, its form gently reshaped by the cooler currents guiding it forward. The droplet nestled inside sensed a calm anticipation, as if the sky itself was preparing to reveal something new. Soon, faint shapes appeared in the distance, soft, pale forms drifting at higher altitude. At first, they looked like delicate fragments of mist floating far beyond reach. But as the young cloud continued its steady ascent, those shapes grew clearer, revealing themselves to be other clouds, larger, older, and carrying a quiet presence that filled the sky with a subtle reverence. The elder clouds moved slowly, their bodies broad and rounded, shaped by countless journeys through the atmosphere. Their edges were smooth and steady, yet touched by faint patterns that hinted at storms they had weathered, sunsets they had embraced, and rains they had released over distant lands. They carried themselves with a patience and dignity that came only from time. As the young cloud approached them, it felt a gentle shift in the air, like a silent invitation. The elder clouds did not move toward it, nor did they drift away. They simply held their place with calm acceptance, allowing the young cloud to draw nearer. The droplet inside felt a soft flutter, unsure whether it was from curiosity or. When the young cloud finally reached them, their presence washed over it like a deep, restful wave. These clouds seemed to breathe in unison with the sky. Their form was neither rigid nor scattered. Instead, it flowed with a stability the young cloud had never known. The droplet sensed their wisdom, a quiet fullness that came not from words, but from the way they existed, soft, steady, and infinitely patient. The elder clouds blended their mist gently with the young one, allowing wisps of vapor to intertwine without force. It felt like a greeting, like the sky's version of a warm embrace. The droplet drifted through the soft, merging currents, feeling the subtle differences in texture and temperature, proof that these clouds had traveled many paths before this moment. For a long while, none of the clouds shifted dramatically. They simply drifted together, sharing space, sharing silence, sharing the quiet knowledge of the sky. The young cloud felt itself settling deeper into the rhythm of their presence. Time moved differently here, slower, more deliberate, as though the sky paused in respect for these elder forms. The droplet felt their stories, not as spoken memories, but as impressions carried through the mist. There were hints of distant oceans, wide mountain ranges, forests that stretched beyond the horizon, and storms that had taught them balance between power and restraint. The droplets sensed the echoes of rainfall that had nourished lands far from its own birthplace. It was a vast history, shared without sound, flowing gently from one cloud to another. Occasionally, one of the elder clouds shifted slightly, allowing a ray of sunlight to pass through its body. These beams traveled across the young cloud, scattering into soft glimmers that danced among the droplets inside. The droplet felt touched by this light, warmed by a presence that seemed to say, "Your journey is just beginning. Watch the sky, learn from it." The young cloud drifted closer, its form settling comfortably among the elders. It felt safe, protected, not in a way that kept it still, but in a way that encouraged gentle growth. The droplet rested inside this serenity, absorbing the calm wisdom surrounding it. As they floated together, the sky itself seemed to quiet. The wind softened, the light mellowed, and the horizon held a soft glow. The moment felt suspended, like a deep breath held between one chapter of life and the next. Eventually, the elder clouds began to drift apart, not quickly, but gradually, their paths shaped by subtle currents the young cloud had yet to feel fully. They did not leave out of indifference. Their movements were simply part of the sky's ongoing flow. Before drifting away, they allowed their vapor to brush gently against the young cloud one last time. A silent farewell filled with reassurance. The young cloud watched them move on, their large forms slowly merging with the distant blue until they were no more than soft silhouettes on the horizon. The droplet felt a quiet shift, an understanding that the encounter had been meaningful, even though no words were exchanged. The sky around the young cloud felt wider now, richer, as if touched by the wisdom of those who had drifted before it. And as it resumed its gentle journey, the droplet carried with it a new sense of purpose, born from the silent teachings of the elder clouds. The sky grew quieter as the young cloud drifted away from the elder giants. Their presence lingered behind it like a soft echo, a memory carried gently within its mist. The air around the cloud cooled slightly, and the winds settled into a calm, steady flow. With each slow movement forward, the cloud felt a subtle shift inside, a quiet, stirring, delicate, and almost imperceptible. Deep within its misty body, droplets began to gather in new ways. They drifted closer together, responding to the cloud's gentle change in temperature and pressure. These movements were not hurried, nor were they chaotic. They formed patterns as natural as breathing, soft ripples of condensation that whispered of rain yet to come. The droplet, nestled among them, sensed this transformation unfolding. It felt the subtle pull of forming moisture, the soft gathering of tiny droplets seeking one another through the cloud's cool interior. Though nothing had yet changed on the surface, the cloud carried within it the earliest signs of rain. Rain not ready to fall, but quietly beginning to take shape. The cloud itself felt heavier, though only slightly. Not a weight that burdened, but a fullness that signaled growth. This was the deep preparation that clouds understood instinctively, a process that unfolded slowly, patiently, respecting the natural rhythm of the sky. The droplet floated through this forming environment, aware that it was becoming part of something larger, something that would one day touch the earth below. As more droplets within the cloud drew together, the cloud's interior grew denser. Light filtered through in softer, muted tones, turning bright rays into gentle hues that drifted like pale colors brushed across a canvas. Shadows formed and dissolved with every shift of the cloud's vapor, creating a hidden world where droplets shimmered quietly in the dim light. The droplet listened to this inner world. It heard the faint tremors of droplets meeting, the gentle sound of condensation accumulating within the cloud. These sounds were not loud, they were barely whispers, yet deeply meaningful. They spoke of cycles returning to themselves, of the way water traveled endlessly through sky, sea, and land, guided by forces both invisible and ancient. Outside, the sky remained calm. Birds flew beneath the cloud, their wings cutting smooth arcs through the air. Their movements created small disturbances in the wind, subtle ripples that reached the cloud and vibrated softly through its mist. The droplet felt these motions as distant echoes, gentle reminders of life moving below, while the cloud prepared its quiet work above. As the cloud grew fuller, it drifted lower in the sky, carried by cooler currents. It did not descend enough to release rain, only enough to sense the earth with greater clarity. The droplet felt the nearness of the land, even though it could not see it. There was a heaviness in the air, a grounded stillness that reached upward like a soft, welcoming breath. Inside this shifting atmosphere, the droplets continued to gather. Their clusters grew larger, forming delicate chains of moisture that glimmered faintly as they merged. The droplet felt itself drawn gently toward others, not with force, but with the quiet pull of nature's design. It joined them slowly, allowing its tiny form to merge into a large droplet that carried more weight, more purpose. Still, the cloud did not release them. It held its forming rain carefully, allowing each droplet to grow in its own time. Rain must be patient. Rain must be ready. The sky knew this, and the cloud followed its guidance without question. As the cloud drifted through this moment of quiet creation, the droplet sensed something new emerging inside itself. A soft awareness, a kind of anticipation. It knew that the path it had taken from the sea to the sky was only one part of its journey. The next part, the return to the earth, would come eventually, but not yet. For now, the rain remained unborn, gathering strength gently and silently. The cloud embraced this stillness. It carried its forming rain like a promise, held carefully within its mist. And the droplet, now part of something larger than before, rested in peaceful readiness, trusting that the sky would decide the right moment for its fall. The rain would come, but only when the cloud was ready. The cloud drifted quietly through the open sky, carrying within it the growing weight of droplets that had not yet been released. Though it had not begun to rain, something gentle and new stirred inside its mist, a sense of possibility, like a dream slowly forming. The droplet, now merged with several others, felt this sensation as a soft vibration, a whisper of purpose echoing through the cloud's cool interior. The sky around them was calm. Light from the sun filtered through in muted shades, creating a soft silver glow within the cloud. The air was neither too warm nor too cold. It held a delicate balance that made everything feel suspended in a peaceful pause. During moments like these, clouds often drifted into quiet reflection, and this young cloud was no exception. The droplet sensed that the cloud was dreaming, not in the human sense of images and stories, but in the way nature dreams, through feeling, through instinct, through imagining what it might one day become. The cloud's dream was simple yet profound. It imagined rain, not forceful rain nor sudden storms, but a gentle fall, soft enough to kiss the earth and light enough to soothe the land. Inside, the droplets felt this dream spreading like a soft warmth. They imagined themselves descending through the air in slow, graceful arcs, drifting toward fields, forests, and rivers. They imagined touching leaves and soil, joining streams, and awakening seeds that rested patiently beneath the surface. The dream was tender, filled with a quiet longing to give life, to nourish, to return to the world below in a gentle embrace. The young cloud did not rush this vision. It allowed the dream to unfold at its own pace, weaving through its vapor like drifting ribbons of thought. The droplet floated within these imagined currents, feeling its form respond to the cloud's subtle emotions. Though the journey downward had not begun, the droplet could sense the meaning of rain more deeply now. Rain was not simply falling, it was a reunion, a continuation of the cycle that connected sea, sky, and land. Outside, the wind brushed softly against the cloud's edges, carrying the faint scent of distant forests and cool mountain air. These scents strengthened the cloud's dream, filling it with quiet inspiration. The droplet inhaled these sensations through the mist around it, feeling itself connected to places it had not yet seen. The dream of rain expanded, becoming a vision of renewal and gentle transformation. As the cloud floated on, it imagined drifting over fields waiting for nourishment, fields where tiny sprouts reached upward with hopeful leaves. It imagined passing above rivers that shimmered in the fading sunlight, their surfaces rippling softly, welcoming each drop that joined them. It imagined touching the branches of ancient trees, sliding down their bark and settling into the earth that had been longing for moisture. The droplet felt itself grow slightly heavier as the dream deepened. Not heavy enough to fall, but heavy with purpose. The cloud felt this too, sensing that its droplets were slowly preparing for their next stage. But dreams were not commands. They were gentle previews of what might come. The cloud understood this, and so it did not rush the process. Instead, it held its forming rain with quiet care, allowing the dream to shape its understanding without forcing it into action. As the sun drifted lower, the light within the cloud softened even further, turning into pale hues of gold and lavender. These colors glowed through the mist, creating a peaceful atmosphere that encouraged the dream to linger. The droplet felt suspended in a moment that stretched on endlessly, a moment where falling and rising, giving and receiving were all part of the same quiet harmony. The cloud drifted higher once more, as if trying to gain a broader view of the world it dreamed of touching. The higher it rose, the more expansive the sky became, and the deeper its dream grew. The droplet sensed the vastness and felt humbled by it. Rain was small, yet its purpose was immense. Each drop held meaning, even if it touched only a single leaf or softened a patch of soil. In the depth of this reflection, the cloud finally understood something. Rain was an act of release, but also an act of trust. To fall was to let go. To nourish the earth was to surrender to the cycle, knowing it would rise again someday. The dream of rain was a quiet promise, a promise the cloud wasn't yet ready to fulfill, but one it held gently, faithfully within its heart. As twilight approached, the dream lingered like a soft glow inside the cloud. The droplet rested calmly, carrying within it the tender vision of its future journey. Though the moment of falling had not come, the dream had planted a gentle seed of understanding. And so, the cloud continued to drift, holding its unborn rain close, dreaming of the day it would descend in a gentle shower across the waiting earth. The cloud drifted onward, guided by winds that carried a faint chill, the kind that hinted at higher altitudes and ancient landscapes waiting beyond the horizon. Soon, the fields and rivers below gave way to rising shapes, dark and still against the soft colors of the sky. Mountains began to emerge, tall, silent, and enduring, their peaks reaching upward like the fingers of the earth stretching toward the heavens. The cloud felt the change long before it reached them. The air grew cooler, sharper, filled with a sense of age that seemed to rest upon the world like a quiet, unspoken truth. As the cloud ascended, its form tightened slightly, adjusting naturally to the colder temperatures. The droplet inside felt this subtle shift, a tingling coolness spreading through its form, crisp yet refreshing. Drawing closer, the cloud could see the first mountain peak clearly. It was covered in a delicate layer of snow that glimmered faintly under the soft sunlight. The peak stood unmoving, unwavering, as though it had held the same position for thousands upon thousands of years. Its silence was different from the silence of the sky or the fields. It was deeper, heavier, carrying the memory of seasons long past. The cloud brushed gently over the peak, its lower edges skimming the snowy surface. The droplet felt a sudden coolness run through the cloud's vapor as it passed above the frozen earth. The temperature difference sent tiny shivers of motion through the cloud, reshaping parts of its mist into delicate crystals before they melted back into droplets once more. It was as though the mountain was offering a quiet greeting, sharing its chilled breath with the sky. Far below, rugged slopes stretched downward in sweeping lines. Valleys carved by ancient winds and rivers snaked between the mountains, their shadows deep and serene. The cloud drifted above them slowly, taking in the vastness of the landscape. It felt humbled by the height of the peaks, by their silent endurance. Even the wind's voice changed here, speaking in tones that echoed gently off the mountainsides before dissolving into the sky. The droplet sensed a different kind of energy within the cloud, a reflective calm inspired by the mountains themselves. The cloud felt older somehow, as if passing over the peaks had granted it a glimpse into the timelessness of the world. The droplet drifted through this serenity, feeling itself expand ever so slightly, absorbing the quiet strength that radiated from below. As the cloud moved deeper into the mountain range, it encountered higher peaks dusted with thick layers of snow and ice. These peaks pierced the cloud's underside, dividing parts of its mist before releasing it again as the cloud continued its path. Each encounter felt gentle, like brushing against an immovable presence that neither resisted nor yielded, only existed in perfect balance. The cloud noticed how the light shifted in the mountains. Shadows stretched longer, moving across the ridges like slow, careful strokes of paint. Sunbeams caught on frozen cliffs, scattering into tiny sparkles that flashed briefly before fading. The droplet drifted through these shimmering glints, feeling them flicker against its surface like faint, magical touches. Deeper still, the cloud reached a point where the mountains rose so high that their peaks seemed to touch the very edge of the sky. The cloud drew itself upward, floating just above their summits. It felt the closest it had ever been to the sky's highest breath. The air here was incredibly pure, thin yet vibrant, carrying the crisp scent of untouched snow and ancient stone. Inside the cloud, droplets gathered more tightly, responding instinctively to the lower temperatures. Some crystals began to form again, delicate patterns of ice that sparkled faintly as they drifted among the mist. The droplet watched these crystalline forms with awe, sensing the beauty in their temporary existence. They appeared like tiny frozen stars, each one unique, each one a brief moment of art created by the cold. The cloud hovered at the edge of a towering peak for a moment longer, letting the mountain's presence settle into its form. There was peace here, deep and profound, a stillness that seemed to hold the entire world in a quiet embrace. The droplet felt this stillness deeply, absorbing its impression into its tiny memory. Finally, the wind shifted gently, urging the cloud forward. The mountains began to stretch behind it, fading into softer outlines as the cloud drifted higher and farther away. Yet the impression of their strength remained, a silent reminder of the earth's ancient wisdom. The cloud carried this wisdom with it as it moved on, and the droplet rested within it, knowing that every place it passed shaped its journey in ways both gentle and lasting. The cloud drifted away from the towering mountain peaks, carrying with it the cool, ancient calm of the heights. But as it moved farther across the open sky, the air began to shift once more. The wind grew stronger, sweeping across the atmosphere with deeper force. The sky darkened in distant shades, forming a horizon filled with slow, rolling shadows. The cloud sensed that something powerful lay ahead. Another presence of the sky, older and more complex than any it had yet encountered. As the cloud approached, the shapes became clearer. Massive storm clouds gathered in the distance, layered upon one another like great walls of mist and shadow. Their bodies were dense and heavy, filled with dark hues that shimmered faintly, with hints of silver and blue. They did not move lightly. Each drift carried weight, purpose, and the deep rhythm of nature's cycles. The young cloud felt a mixture of awe and uncertainty. Though storms could be fierce, they were also wise, shaped by experience, by seasons, by countless transformations across the sky. The droplet nestled inside sensed the growing tension in the air, not as a threat, but as an ancient force awakening with slow, deliberate breaths. When the young cloud reached the edge of the gathering storm, the air grew thicker, charged with a subtle energy that vibrated softly through its mist. The elder storm clouds did not ignore the newcomer. Instead, they acknowledged it with a slow, rumbling presence. A low hum echoed faintly within their vast forms, neither aggressive nor welcoming, simply there, like the voice of something too old to hurry. The young cloud drifted closer, guided by the wind's firm hand. As it approached one of the storm's great towers, it felt a deep resonance pass through it. The storm cloud's vapor pulsed with power, yet its movements remained steady and controlled. Inside it were countless droplets, crystals, and currents, all held in intricate balance. The droplet inside the young cloud sensed this balance. It felt the storm's ancient wisdom flowing outwards in waves, wisdom born from years of drifting, gathering moisture, releasing rain, and reshaping itself through countless rises and falls. The storm cloud radiated strength, but not recklessness. It understood the weight of rain, the meaning of thunder, the purpose of its own force. For a moment, the sky fell into a deep stillness. Then, a faint roll of thunder echoed through the air. Not loud or startling, but distant and thoughtful, like a memory being spoken aloud. It vibrated across the sky, reaching the young cloud in a soft, rumbling murmur. The droplet felt the sound resonate through its form, a gentle tremor that carried not fear, but understanding. The storm cloud shifted slightly, its dark layers glowing faintly with internal light. A subtle flash flickered deep within, not bright enough to break the young cloud's calm, but strong enough to reveal the storm's hidden heart, a swirling core of energy, turning slowly like a massive, breathing world. This was the storm's wisdom, to hold great power while releasing it with intention and balance. The droplet listened to the storm's quiet message. It spoke not in words, but in currents of pressure, in cycles of gathering and release, in the deep rumble of thunder that echoed softly across the cloud's mist. Strength is not in force alone. It is in knowing when to hold, when to let go, and when to rest. The young cloud absorbed the message deeply. It felt the storm's presence wrap around it, not tightening, not intimidating, but surrounding it with the vastness of what the sky could be. The droplet felt small within this vastness, but not insignificant. Instead, it realized that every droplet, every cloud, every piece of mist played a part in the sky's great balance. Lightning flickered again, softer this time, illuminating the storm's edges in a faint silver glow. The young cloud drifted along the storm's outer boundary, feeling the contrast between its own calm form and the storm's heavy presence. Yet the two existed in harmony, each fulfilling its own role in the sky's rhythm. As the wind guided the young cloud away, the storm cloud did not reach out or pull it back. It allowed the cloud to drift onward, carrying with it the weight of its silent wisdom. The thunder faded into distance, becoming a gentle echo swallowed by the vast sky. The droplet settled into the cloud's mist once more, feeling richer, steadier. The storm had shown it the strength that lay not in force, but in purpose, the strength of nature's balance. The cloud drifted onward, transformed by the encounter, carrying the storm's quiet teachings within every whisper of its vapor. The cloud drifted away from the solemn embrace of the storm, carried now by winds that grew warmer and softer with each passing moment. The sky, once filled with deep grays and murmuring thunder, began to open into gentle hues. Light filtered slowly through the thinning atmosphere, shifting from bright gold to soft amber. It was the beginning of sunset, a time when the sky itself seemed to breathe in a slower, deeper rhythm. The young cloud felt the change immediately. The air around it settled into a peaceful calm, the kind that only came when day prepared to fold into evening. The droplet within sensed this transition as a warm pulse spreading through the mist, a quiet signal that the world was entering one of its most serene moments. As the cloud drifted westward, the sun lowered toward the horizon, painting the sky in broad strokes of color. Soft oranges blended into pale pinks, and gentle shades of lavender stretched across the heavens. These colors danced across the cloud's surface, scattering through its mist and creating drifting waves of light that glowed from within. The droplet floated through this soft illumination, watching how the light changed as it moved through the cloud. At times, it shimmered warmly. At others, it softened into a muted glow. Shadows formed in delicate layers, shifting slowly like whispering curtains. The droplet felt the light touch it with the gentlest of warmth, as though the sun were offering a final, tender goodbye before sinking from sight. Below, the world glowed beneath the sunset's embrace. Rivers became paths of bronze, winding through the land with graceful curves. Trees cast long shadows across rolling hills, their branches outlined in warm silhouettes. Tiny lights flickered in distant homes, each one a small beacon preparing for the coming night. The cloud observed this scene with quiet reverence, sensing the peaceful unity between sky and earth during this transition. The wind faded almost completely as sunset deepened. The cloud drifted at its own pace now, unhurried and weightless. It felt suspended between day and night, resting in the tender stillness that only twilight could offer. The droplet sensed every delicate shift, the way the air cooled just enough to refresh the cloud's mist, the way the sky's colors softened into deeper tones, the way the atmosphere seemed to hold its breath. As the sun neared the edge of the horizon, its light stretched outward in long, horizontal bands, turning the sky into a radiant canvas. The cloud found itself glowing from within, its vapor catching the light in countless shifting fragments. Each droplet became a tiny mirror, reflecting the sunset's beauty in soft, flickering colors. The droplet felt itself shimmering as well, wrapped in hues it could not have imagined before. The cloud, inspired by the beauty surrounding it, drifted a little higher, hoping to see the sun's final descent more clearly. From this height, the view was endless. The sun appeared larger, its edges blurred by the warm haze of evening. It lowered slowly, gracefully, as if reluctant to leave the sky. The droplet watched in awe as the last sliver of light dipped beneath the horizon, leaving a lingering glow that hovered like a gentle memory. Darkness did not arrive suddenly. Instead, it emerged gradually, softening the sky with tones of violet and deep blue. Stars began to appear, first one, then two, then dozens, small points of silver light piercing the deepening twilight. The cloud felt a coolness settle over it, not harsh but soothing, like a calm breath taken after a long day. The droplet sensed the shift from light to darkness and embraced it fully. It understood that sunset was not an ending, but a gentle turning of the page, a moment when the world quieted itself in preparation for the peace of night. The cloud carried these reflections within its mist, feeling lighter, calmer, and more attuned to the rhythms of the sky. As night settled fully, the last traces of sunset faded into the horizon, leaving behind a memory of warmth and color that would return again with the next dawn. The cloud drifted into the evening's soft embrace, its droplets glowing faintly from the light they still held within, and the droplet rested, filled with the quiet wonder of sunset's gentle wisdom. Night unfolded across the sky like a soft blanket, draping every horizon in deep shades of blue and violet. The cloud drifted quietly through this new darkness, its movements slow and nearly silent, as if it wished not to disturb the serenity that had settled over the world. The droplet within the cloud felt the cool touch of night wrap gently around it, a soothing embrace that invited rest, reflection, and the quiet acceptance of the hours ahead. Stars emerged in greater numbers now, scattered across the sky like tiny lanterns, guiding the cloud's path. Each star shimmered with a calm, steady glow, sending faint rays of silver down toward the drifting cloud. These rays passed through the cloud's edges, bending softly through the mist and creating a delicate tremble of light deep within. The droplet watched these shimmering threads with quiet wonder, sensing the endlessness of the night stretching far beyond its vision. The wind had grown gentle, almost hesitant, moving in slow breaths that barely stirred the cloud's vapor. The air carried a coolness that felt pure and clean, filled with the scent of distant forests and cooling earth below. The cloud absorbed this calmness, letting it settle through its entire form like a slow spreading wave. The droplet nestled inside felt its own motion slow, drifting in small, peaceful circles as the cloud floated onward. Below, the world rested. Fields that had glowed beneath the afternoon sun now lay in deep shadows. Rivers reflected the night sky like long strands of polished obsidian. Small clusters of houses glimmered faintly with warm lights from windows, each one a tiny hearth of life in the vast darkness. The cloud observed these resting places gently, drifting above without haste, as if watching over a sleeping world. Occasionally, a soft breeze lifted the cloud slightly, giving it a higher vantage point. From here, the night seemed even more expansive. The horizon curved in a broad arc, blending seamlessly into the darkness, while constellations moved overhead with ancient certainty. The droplet sensed a quiet rhythm in their movement, a cosmic breath that had pulsed long before the cloud was born and would continue long after it faded. The cloud drifted into a region where the air grew stiller, almost motionless. Here, the night silence deepened, wrapping the cloud in an almost sacred stillness. No rustling winds, no distant echoes, only a vast calm that felt alive in its own quiet way. The droplet felt suspended within this silence, as though it floated not within mist, but within a world woven entirely of peace. As the cloud continued its gentle passage, the moon emerged from behind a distant peak, a pale, luminous sphere rising slowly into the sky. Its light was cool and soft, spreading across the landscape with a touch of silver dust. When the moonlight reached the cloud, it illuminated its mist from within, turning droplets into tiny orbs that shimmered like floating pearls. The droplet felt the moonlight touch its surface, bringing a faint glow to its tiny form. It drifted through beams of silver, watching them scatter into delicate patterns as they passed through the cloud's interior. Each movement of light was slow, graceful, and filled with a tranquility only the night could offer. The cloud felt no urgency to move quickly. The night invited stillness, and it responded with gentle drifting, often pausing in the air as if listening to something unseen. The droplets sensed these pauses, moments when the cloud seemed to breathe deeply, savoring the cool serenity around it. These pauses were not breaks in the journey, but part of its natural rhythm, as essential as the movements themselves. Time during the night felt different, stretched, softened, unhurried. Hours passed like long, gentle sighs, each one blending into the next. The droplet wondered if the night always moved this slowly, or if the calm of the sky made it feel that way. Either way, it welcomed the softness, letting it seep into every part of its being. As the cloud drifted further, passing above a quiet valley, it sensed the faint beginnings of dawn somewhere beyond the eastern horizon. The night was still deep, but the world was preparing for the first subtle shift of light. The cloud carried this knowledge within its mist without resisting it. Night and day were not rivals, they were partners, gently handing the sky to one another with each passing cycle. For now, though, the night remained. The cloud continued across it, embraced by the stars, guided by the moon, and softened by the breath of cool, quiet air. The droplet drifted peacefully within its cradle of mist, feeling the stillness of the night shape its understanding of the world. And as the cloud travelled through the serene darkness, it carried with it the quiet assurance that every night, no matter how deep, would one day give way to dawn. As the night softened into the earliest edge of dawn, the cloud drifted through a sky wrapped in shades of blue so deep they felt almost infinite. The stars slowly dimmed, giving way to a faint glow rising from the horizon. The world below remained quiet, still wrapped in the final moments of rest before morning. The cloud carried the peaceful weight of the night within it, moving unhurried, suspended in calm. But then, as the wind shifted, a familiar scent rose gently through the air, one the cloud had not felt since its earliest moments. It was subtle at first, a faint whisper carried on a cool breeze. Yet as it grew stronger, the cloud recognized it instantly. It was the smell of salt, of rolling waves, of vast open water breathing beneath the sky. It was the scent of the sea, the droplet's birthplace. Inside the cloud, the droplet felt the message, even before understanding what it meant. A quiet pulse travelled through its tiny form, awakening distant memories it had not touched since rising into the sky. It remembered warmth, the shimmer of sunlight on water, the soft rocking motion of waves. It remembered being part of something vast and fluid, boundless and ancient. The scent of the sea stirred these memories gently, carrying them upward through the cloud's mist like a long-forgotten song. The wind brought more than scent. It carried the sea's voice, soft and rhythmic. It wasn't a voice of words, but of patterns and echoes, as if the ocean was speaking through the air in steady, soothing breaths. The cloud felt the message flow through its vapor. The droplet felt it even more deeply, resonating through every part of itself, like a faraway lullaby returning home. The cloud drifted toward this familiar presence, drawn not by force but by recognition. Below, the land slowly gave way to vast stretches of open coastline. The edges of the sea glimmered faintly under the first hints of morning light, reflecting soft shades of grey and silver. Waves rolled in slow, repeated motions, rising and falling with unhurried grace. From above, the water looked endless, stretching into the horizon like a calm mirror awaiting the sun. The cloud hovered above the shoreline, letting its shadow fall gently across the sands. The droplet felt the nearness of the sea with a quiet longing, not a longing to return immediately, but a longing to remember, to reconnect with the place from which its journey began. The ocean's calm voice rose upward again, a slow, rhythmic whisper that blended seamlessly with the steady movement of waves below. "You will return," the sea seemed to say. "All water returns. But for now, drift, learn, become. Your journey shapes the world in ways unseen." The droplet listened, its tiny form trembling with a soft, emotional warmth. It realized that the sea was not calling it back yet, only reminding it that the cycle of water was vast and patient. There was no need to rush or fear the future. Whether it fell as rain upon fields, mountains, forests, or rivers, its path would eventually lead it home again. The sea was not a distant memory. It was a promise waiting quietly in the background of its journey. The cloud lingered above the ocean for a long while, absorbing the gentle, rhythmic messages rising from below. The waves moved tirelessly, sending upward the same soft assurance with every crest. The droplet drifted peacefully within the cloud, letting these messages wrap around it like a warm embrace. As dawn approached fully, the first rays of sunlight stretched across the water, turning the surface into a sheet of pale gold. The sea shimmered as though smiling, reflecting the soft morning glow back toward the sky. The cloud caught some of this light, illuminating gently from within. The droplet felt warmed by the glow and the message alike, both reminding it that the world was connected in ways too beautiful and quiet to fully grasp. The wind shifted once more, urging the cloud gently away from the coastline. The sea did not hold it. It released the cloud with calm acceptance, knowing the sky would guide it wherever it needed to go. The droplet felt no sadness in drifting away, only a peaceful understanding that it carried a piece of the sea within it, no matter where the wind led next. As the cloud moved inland again, the scent of salt faded gradually, replaced by the soft fragrance of morning air. But the message lingered, echoing silently in the droplet's heart. Every journey returns to its beginning, not through haste, but through the quiet patience of nature. The cloud drifted onward, carrying the sea's whisper gently within its mist. The cloud drifted farther inland, leaving the calming voice of the sea behind it, yet carrying its message gently within. Morning had fully awakened, spreading soft light across the sky, but the cloud felt a new weight in its mist, one that had been growing quietly for some time. The droplets inside it had gathered, grown, emerged until they now formed clusters heavy with purpose. Their time was approaching, though not yet fully arrived. Within the cloud, the droplet felt the subtle tension building, not a harsh or urgent feeling, but a deep, settling awareness. It sensed that the moment of transformation was drawing near. The droplets around it no longer drifted aimlessly. They hung with a quiet readiness, suspended in the cool interior, like pearls waiting to be released. The cloud itself felt this change more profoundly. It drifted lower, guided by gentle air currents that seemed to understand the weight it carried. The world below had shifted once more, from forests and valleys to a stretch of rich, fertile land where fields lay thirsty beneath the sun. The soil was cracked in some places, dry lines branching like delicate veins across the earth. Plants stretched upward, their leaves slightly curled from longing for moisture. The cloud observed this landscape with a deep sense of empathy. It had passed above many places, each carrying its own quiet needs, but something about this land felt unmistakably urgent. The air rose from the ground in warm waves, reaching toward the cloud as if in a silent plea. The wind softened its touch, circling the cloud with an almost encouraging motion. Everything in the sky seemed to whisper the same message. The time is near. The droplet listened to these whispers, feeling them settle deep inside. It remembered the dream of rain, the soft imagery the cloud had carried in its heart not long ago. It remembered the promise from the sea, reminding it that one day it would return to earth, fulfilling the cycle that connected all water. Now, that promise felt closer than ever. Still, the cloud did not rush. Decision in the sky was never made through pressure or sudden impulse. It emerged through calm understanding, through sensing when the world and the sky aligned in silent agreement. The droplets continued to gather, forming heavier beads of water that clung gently to one another. The droplet felt its own form expand slightly, becoming heavier, more complete. Sunlight filtered through the cloud in thin, gentle rays, illuminating the droplets with pale gold. The cloud drifted lower still, its underside growing darker as its interior grew denser. The ground below waited, but the cloud held its forming rain with thoughtful care. It wasn't enough simply to release water. It had to release it at the moment when it would give the most gentle, meaningful nourishment. The droplet felt a small shift, a soft compression in the cloud's lower layers. It was like the intake of a breath before a long-awaited exhale. The droplet knew this feeling instinctively. It was the beginning of readiness. The cloud felt it too, sensing that the droplets were reaching the point at which they would naturally let go. A quiet calm spread across the cloud's mist. The wind slowed, the sun dimmed behind a thin veil of vapor, and the world seemed to pause for a heartbeat. Inside, the droplet felt a deep harmony settle among all the droplets. They were connected in purpose now, joined not simply by condensation, but by intention. The cloud was preparing, not for a storm, but for an act of gentle giving. The decision was not spoken, nor did it need to be. It blossomed within the cloud like a soft realization. It is time to begin. The droplet felt itself shift, drawn downward by a force that had always lived within it, but had not yet awakened. The weight was steady, comforting, like being guided toward a destination it had long awaited. Around it, other droplets trembled slightly as they, too, sensed the change. The cloud gathered its strength, not the strength of storms or thunder, but the quiet strength of release, of trust, of letting go. It understood that the rain would not fall all at once. It would begin softly, gradually, with the same patience that had shaped the cloud's journey from the sea to the sky. The droplet embraced this moment. It felt no fear, only a peaceful acceptance. The cycle was moving forward, and it was part of something vast and beautiful. Soon it would fall, touching the earth in the gentle way it had always dreamed of. But the first drop had not yet fallen. It hovered at the threshold, suspended in perfect stillness. The cloud held its breath, preparing for the moment when the sky would open softly to the waiting land. The decision was made. The rain would come. The cloud drifted low over the waiting land, its mist heavy with droplets that trembled on the edge of release. The air beneath it had grown still, as though the world itself sensed the coming change. Warm currents rose gently from the dry soil, lifting soft whispers into the cloud's lower layers, whispers of longing, of thirst, of patient anticipation. The cloud felt them all, letting the warmth guide its final moments of preparation. Inside the cloud, the droplets hung in perfect stillness, suspended like thousands of tiny promises. For so long, they had gathered, merged, grown, and waited. Now, the weight within them had shifted. The pull of gravity tugged more firmly at their edges, yet the cloud held them for a heartbeat longer, making sure the descent would be gentle and kind. The droplet felt the moment arrive, not as a sudden force, but as a soft release within its core. It was as though something inside it had quietly opened, allowing it to surrender to the downward pull that had always been part of its nature. The droplet trembled slightly, feeling its bond to the cloud loosen with a tender, inevitable grace. Below, a single leaf on a withered plant lifted faintly in a small breeze, as if ready to receive whatever the sky might offer. The land beneath the cloud waited silently, its stillness filled with hope. Then, without sound or warning, the first droplet let go. The descent was slow at first, like drifting through a soft dream. The droplet slipped free from the cloud's misty embrace, entering the open air with a delicate fall. The world around it expanded instantly, the sky widening, the land rising gently to meet it. Cool air touched its surface, shaping it into a perfect sphere of shimmering water. For a moment, the droplet felt weightless, floating downward with quiet grace. Another droplet followed, then another. They fell not in a rush, but in a gentle cascade, each one beginning its journey with the same soft release. The cloud exhaled with each drop, growing lighter, its mist parting slowly as the rain began to touch the world below. The first droplet continued its fall, drifting through layers of air that cooled it slightly. Sunlight, though faint behind the cloud, reflected off its tiny surface, creating a brief flicker of silver. The droplet felt a mixture of calm and purpose. Every moment brought it closer to the earth it had once left long ago, as vapor rising from the sea. As it descended, the droplet passed through a pocket of warm air rising from the land, causing it to sway gently sideways before continuing downward. The movement was subtle, graceful, a final dance with the sky before reaching its destination. Below, the leaf waited. When the droplet finally touched it, the sound was barely audible. A soft, delicate tap, lighter than a whisper. Yet that quiet sound carried profound meaning. The droplet spread across the leaf's surface, cooling it, seeping into tiny veins that led toward the stem. The plant shivered faintly, as if in relief. The cloud felt the moment of impact through subtle shifts in the wind, through the quiet release of tension inside its own body. It sensed the nourishment beginning to flow into the land. The first raindrop had completed its journey, and still more droplets fell. The rain continued, steady but gentle, falling in a calm rhythm that soothed both sky and earth. Droplets landed on soil, softening it, on stones, darkening their surfaces, on branches, making them glisten. Tiny rivulets formed, threading between roots and drifting into the thirsty ground. Inside the cloud, the droplet's absence was felt not as a loss, but as a warm fulfillment. The cloud understood the purpose of its rain more deeply now. The act of letting go brought new life into the world below, just as the storm's wisdom and the sea's message had whispered it would. The cloud grew lighter with each falling drop, yet the rhythm of rain continued, a gentle, continuous gift to the land. The droplets, still waiting inside, felt their time approaching, each one preparing for its own descent, each one ready to follow the path the first droplet had taken. And far below, upon the leaf where the droplet had landed, a tiny bead of water shimmered quietly, reflecting both the earth it had touched and the sky from which it had come. It rested there, peaceful and complete, fulfilling its purpose with soft simplicity. The rain had begun, and the world welcomed it with open, silent gratitude. The gentle rain continued to fall in a soft, steady rhythm, each droplet descending with quiet purpose. The cloud drifted overhead, lighter now, yet deeply fulfilled as the land below began to respond to the gift it offered. The first drops that touched the earth sank slowly into the dry soil, disappearing into cracks that had waited patiently for relief. Each droplet carried with it a pulse of renewal, awakening layers of earth that had longed for moisture. The droplet that had landed upon the leaf spread across its surface, creating a delicate sheen that reflected the soft grey of the sky. This moisture seeped gradually into the plant, feeding it, cooling it, reminding it of the world's hidden generosity. As more droplets fell, the plant's leaves lifted slightly, responding to the quiet nourishment with a subtle, grateful stretch. Across the field, the soil began to darken, its surface softening as rain continued to fall. Tiny grains shifted, swelling gently, releasing the earthy scent of renewed life. Seeds buried beneath the ground absorbed the first hints of moisture, awakening from their long dormancy. Though they remained unseen, the cloud sensed their stirring, the faint, slow beat of potential rising from beneath the earth. Small puddles formed in shallow dips of the land, their surfaces rippling softly as each new droplet touched them. The puddles sparkled faintly under the muted light, forming delicate mirrors that reflected the drifting cloud above. The droplet, though now part of the earth below, felt connected to these tiny reflections, sensing the calm relationship between sky and soil. Animals emerged from their quiet shelters, drawn by the gentle rhythm of the rain. Birds fluttered from tree branches, shaking droplets from their feathers. as they hopped along the softening ground. Their calls were subdued, peaceful, as though they understood the sacredness of the moment. A small fox stepped carefully from between shrubs, its fur dampened by the falling drizzle. It lifted its head toward the sky, blinking softly as droplets touched its face, accepting the rain with calm curiosity. Grass that had stood stiff and brittle bowed gracefully under the weight of the new moisture. As the rain continued, its blades began to rise again, regaining their softness and color. Slowly, subtle shades of green spread across the field, replacing the dry, pale tones that had dominated before. The cloud, watching from above, felt the land breathe more freely, each breath deeper and more renewed than the last. Rivulets of rainwater formed along the slopes of the land, tiny streams that wound their way between stones and roots. They moved quietly, gathering strength from each droplet that joined them. These small streams converged into larger flows, guiding water back into the earth, carrying nourishment to hidden places where life waited silently. The droplets' journey was reflected in every movement of water below, a cycle of rising, drifting, and returning. Trees responded too. Their bark, once dry and warm, cooled beneath the falling rain, absorbing moisture through tiny channels that carried water deep into their trunks. Leaves shimmered with shining droplets, each one clinging for a moment before sliding gently down, joining the puddles forming at the roots. The forest edge seemed to glow softly, wrapped in the quiet renewal that the rain brought. The cloud drifted forward, releasing its rain with steady care. Though lighter now, it still held within it many droplets that would soon follow the same path downward. The cloud felt connected to the land in a way it had not before, not merely observing from above, but participating in the quiet rebirth unfolding below. Every drop that fell became part of a story far older and grander than the cloud itself. The droplet, now hidden within the soil, felt the cool embrace of earth surrounding it. It sensed roots nearby, stretching slowly toward the new moisture. Tiny openings drew it inward, welcoming it into the intricate web of life beneath the surface. The droplet surrendered willingly, feeling itself become part of the land's renewal. It was no longer drifting in the sky, but fulfilling a deeper purpose. Above, the clouds sensed this transformation. It felt joy, not loud or overwhelming, but quiet and steady, like the rain itself. The world below was waking, softened by each drop, strengthened by each moment of gentle nourishment. Life, once dormant and waiting, now stirred in countless places. The rain did not need to fall hard to bring life. It needed only to fall with intention, with gentleness, with the understanding that every drop mattered. And as the cloud continued its slow journey, releasing water in a calm, steady shower, the land blossomed in response. Life was returning, quietly, beautifully, carried on the wings of each falling drop.